Hey everybody, this is Dr. Maples. So we're going to continue our survey lectures today by talking about two different kinds of surveys. The first kind that I want to talk about is the cross-sectional survey, and the near majority, if not the bulk, of surveys that are going to be done fall in this category. A cross-sectional survey simply is taking a slice of a particular moment in time. The cross-sectional survey examines a single moment in time, and that time is right now. This is what's happening the moment that I took that data. So if you look back at my studies on the Red River Gorge, you get a very clear picture in the year, I think it was 2015, of exactly what climbers looked like in terms of their expenditures and demographics and so forth. Are they the same today? Probably not. In fact, I would say they've changed over time. But for a cross-sectional survey, we don't have that data. We only have what it looked like at that particular moment. Now, the cool thing is that gives us a really cool idea for that period of time, exactly what something looks like. But we have to understand that it can change. In fact, this is a slight weakness also of surveys that we didn't mention in our previous mini lecture. Well, the way that we compensate with that is by doing something we call a longitudinal survey. Now, longitudinal surveys deal with time through a couple of different approaches, but they take samples of those survey at different periods of time. Where my cross-sectional survey gave me a cross-section of that moment in time, a longitudinal survey, if done well, will give me a sense of what a group that I'm studying might look like over time. Now, there's really a couple of different ways that we can go about doing a longitudinal survey. By the way, one really simple way is to do the same survey multiple times, and it's not really something that we bring up, but it's kind of something to consider. You can take your cross-sectional survey and simply do it multiple times. But some specific ways that we practice longitudinal surveys include trends, panels, and cohorts. And what we can do is with trend surveys, we're taking a moment to examine the changes over time by using a different sample. So in a trend study, what we're going to do is we're going to do this survey today and we're going to take a sample. And then maybe 6 months later, we're going to take another sample. And then maybe 6 months after that, we're going to take another sample. In fact, that's kind of like just using your cross-sectional survey over and over and over. You don't have the same people responding to your survey, but it gives you a sense of how things might change over time, if at all. A panel is a little different because with a panel, we're taking the same survey multiple times, but we use the same people. So with the trend survey, we only have a general sense how the group changes over time. But with a panel survey, we can actually see how specific individuals change over time. With a panel survey, you're using the same people every time. People may drop out of the study, by the way, but you don't necessarily need to add new people. You just use the people that you can, and they take the survey repeated times at different time periods. And this is cool because we can actually use these kinds of studies to track people over a particular time. Likewise, with cohort surveys, which kind of feel kind of similar, we examine changes over time using people from a particular group. We might not use the same people as we did in a panel survey, but we might isolate a particular group that we want to study and look at them at multiple times. So pretend that I want to study a particular kind of rock climber, say the sport rock climber, which is a very popular form of climbing in the red. I could specifically study sport climbers and take people from that cohort or group and study them repeatedly. In that sense, it's kind of like the panel survey, doing it multiple times, but I'm doing different people. But with the cohort study, at least I'm keeping the same kind of group. With the trend survey, of course, we're using different people each time, so that's also very similar to the cohort survey. There's a fourth category called the retrospective, which is not technically a longitudinal survey, but it's where we actually try to look at what's changed in the past by reflecting on them today. What ends up happening is you ask people to think back about how they felt at a thing or moment at a particular time, and then reflect on that today as part of their survey questions. So again, we're trying to get that sense of time, but we maybe aren't doing it as over a period of times or doing multiple surveys. We're really just doing one survey and looking back. Now, the differences for longitudinal surveys are simply this. The bulk of surveys you're going to do are going to be cross-sectional. In fact, cross-sectional is going to be really what we will expect to see in this class for those of you who choose to design a survey for this assignment. But as you get better at survey design, or you get more advanced like I am, this is where you might start looking at time studies, where we look at something how groups or individuals or even a cohort or even people might change over time, how they feel about things over this period of time. There's your two basic kinds of surveys. Now, again, as I go forward, I'm going to focus on the cross-section because that's going to be the bulk of what you do. Cross-section gives us an exact idea of what things look like at a specific moment in time, and that's what we're going to focus on as we roll forward. But I wanted to make sure you knew what a longitudinal survey was, in case it ever comes up for your jobs or for college. That's going to be it for this lecture. In our next one, we're going to start thinking a little bit about question design. This is going to be an important lecture, so take good notes. If you have questions, concerns, or anything, I will see you then. Otherwise, take care.